As we can. Welcome to all the new people that are joining us. This is Leadership in Practice 135 today.
Yes. So something that started as what was supposed to be 4 classes for COVID being gone, which we thought 4 weeks would be gone, turns into 135 weekly classes later, and here we are.
Yeah.
And it's evolving over time too, which is interesting. So the topic we want to cover today, it's a continuation of some of the key things happening. And there was an article, I'll share a bit of it. I put it on the community message board, you can also get it there too, which is learning to argue and arguing to learn. And a lot of people, when you hear the notion of learning to argue, most of us viscerally have where's the eject button, right? Where's the eject button? What are the techniques to basically de-escalate, right? When I think about argument, what we have found is
Keep your emotions in check, right?
But I just think
try
about
to
de-escalation is almost
yeah.
the almost immediate visceral response that occurs in most adults, right? Someone raises their voice, you're instantly thinking, how do I de-escalate?
Yeah.
Rarely do we think, how do I feed into that, right? You hear people like getting angry and suddenly like four-letter, one-syllable words start coming out, and your instant thought is, how do I calm myself down? Admiral Burke talked about calibrating, which is a way to breathe, and just, how do you calm the heck down, right? And how do you calm others down, cooler minds and whatnot? It's counterintuitive to think, how do I do the opposite? Are there situations where there is a skill in feeding into that and getting more truth, more discussion, and trying to learn as opposed to trying to win? And so this is the class we're going to go into, which I think is fascinating. So this is the article. We'll pick up pieces from it. I'll come back to this in a second. But it was done by these researchers in Yale. When they studied the most successful people, they found that they argued differently than everyone else. And instead of arguing to win, as in, kind of this notion of what ego often is me being right. They're focusing on getting it right, and they're not as scared of what comes with argument. And oftentimes, I know even in Founders Institute, when you coach startups, one of the things you have to exposure therapy and get them used to is what feels like sharp, critical advice and feedback that never work, you suck, and they instantly get defensive. Versus looking for, why did you say that? What is it? And it's and so this article talks about it a little bit. It's not a natural instinct that we have. And so you have to rep and train this. And this is actually one of the more important skills you need in today's world of navigating uncertainty. So we're going to come back into this, but really quick, Brent, I don't mind sharing parts of this. We get a lot of notes coming into our email box. Brent French, who was, he's a co-head of the business school in WPI, sent us an email last week after the class, and I was sharing it because I thought it was kind of neat. He said, so this is not the whole note, but thank you for welcoming me back so warmly to LIP. LIP stands for Leadership in Practice, and that's what this is. It feels like church. Anyone is welcome anytime. Doors are always open. This online COA stands for Community Online Academy. Anybody can click in and join. You can also just click out and leave. So, either way, it's kind of like church, with even less of the embarrassment trying to walk out in the middle of the service.
Oh, embarrassing you, Brent. Look at his face. He's like, is that okay? He's like, yeah.
So found when I was out of the weekly habit of going to LIP, I wasn't getting an influx of new, interesting ideas. And I think what you're seeing is the class itself. I mean, if you can go back and watch 135 videos, it goes live in video automatically by noon the next day. The content is literally living and breathing content that's coming out from just 1 week's of information that is hitting our inbox to coaching and different people we meet and discuss. And then he said, I also wasn't reflecting as much on my performance. And I think the course of this weekly class makes you think, right? We were talking just this week about kind of the way that Megan and I would describe our life's work.
Yes.
Right? It was interesting.
No, it's so interesting, our life's work, you hear people talk about that, like, I'm doing what I'm meant to do on this planet. So I was talking to Charlie, like, how do I describe what our life's work is? Which it's
And by the way, I like to
30
believe,
years for him, 25 for me. What is that exactly?
and so, by the way, that doesn't mean she's 25 and I'm 30.
Oh, no.
That's the adult years, right?
Is that
No.
what you're thinking?
No, if you were thinking that.
I don't think we started.
Yes,
when we were-
yeah, but I'm just saying, some people like to exaggerate. I've seen a lot of resumes where they're like,
Oh, yeah,
they have like
yeah.
10 years experience, and I'm like, you're 21. They're like, well, I started at 11. I was like,
Right,
that
yeah,
doesn't really
that
count.
doesn't count,
Right?
yeah.
But people do this, right?
But we were talking about what we bond over and why we've been working together for so long, and there's so many things we have in common. We both, habits and rituals, like there's certain things that we sort of bonded over time, but the main thing that sort of we bonded over, like from like almost day one, was on all around the psychology of human beings. Just understanding how people work, how they think. We're interested in how I'm interested in how he thinks, he's interested in how I think. We're interested in almost every opportunity to just understand what people are thinking, what teams are thinking, like the psychology of, and the complication of it, and just how we're so complex as human beings. And so we have so much content, like we never run out. Like we could talk for hours about one little piece, and so we've always been really fascinated by that. So that's sort of the life work around the psychology of human beings, teams, and that's maybe a
And when you
little bit
think
more generic to
psychology-
say that way, but.
When you think
but just-
psychology, there's always your own psychology, which usually is the hardest to
Yeah,
control and
yeah,
manage. Oftentimes, when it's bad, it's called mental chatter. We all have it. You talk about this guy named Ben Horowitz, who wrote a book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and well known for the size of Andreessen Horowitz, private equity firm he built. He always wrote about the number one thing that's hardest by far anything is managing your own psychology. So then there's managing other people's psychology, right? And then not only managing, but understanding and reading psychology is correct. Steve Jobs always said the hardest job was sizing people up correctly, which is another way to say, am I reading the person correctly? Poker players, you spend a lot of time with professional poker players, and they always are spending all the time just reading the tiniest clues to what's happening in the other person's psychology against what they're reading on me.
Right.
And poker players do a natural job of trying to look stone cold. Why the glasses and the hoodie and everything, trying to show no signal from me, from my psychology, but everyone is reading everything.
Right.
And I think when I say life's work, our work has put us in a very fortunate spot over time of the better we got at it, the cooler and the kind of people we met, whether it's the neuroscientists that helped train Tom Brady and interacting with them, whether it's people who were using psychology and other environmental factors to cure autism, or retrain prisoners to be entrepreneurs and talk about like the gamut, charter schools, obviously all the different teams in the military, CIA, around the world. Like we have covered and had the fortune of probably a larger cross-section of this field than most. And so the content you're seeing literally was supposed to be only 4 weeks, but that's what 135 weeks has been. And then, Brent got to watch the movie Prince of Persia, which I hope you like, Brent. So kind of going on this topic, we were just talking with this team at Catalonia. Sorry for the messy handwriting, because so much happens, we don't have time to PowerPoint it. Let me explain to you what's on this slide. There's a whole background, I won't go into all of it, how we helped, Mayor Bloomberg when he was mayor and meeting with Stanford's president who built Silicon Valley, to kind of like the secrets of how to build community. And the word community is so overused. People think of it as online or a meetup or not. It's going way beyond that. And I'll take you through kind of what is the real key ingredient or the objective of community, which I think the person we got the clearest objective for building community was from Tony Hsieh, who passed away. He was the founder of Zappos. And we spent a lot of time not only helping train him and his leaders, but getting to know their organization as well. But he always called it serendipitous collisions. When you build the right community, you're setting up and optimizing to increase serendipitous collisions of the best people, the right who. And the right who, and you'll see a lot of communities are so, what's the word? Kind of one, what's that word? When it's just like everyone's biased to one thought, all lawyers or all tech or all women only or homogenous. It's just like kind of, and the power of community is diversity. If you ever watch those nature shows of how you create an ecosystem, like they need different plants, different soils, they need bees to come in, and then they need some animals to come. It's like, it's amazing the diversity factor. And yet, doesn't mean you throw in diversity just for the sake of diversity. You throw one of those physical ecosystems and throw a saber-toothed tiger wants to eat everyone, bad insertion, even though diverse, right? Like, meaning it matters, the who matters in the selection. But the biggest key to building community we found over time was, and this is coming from just decades of research, seeing others, and even how Stanford built Silicon Valley, meeting with the president there and all this stuff, was this combination of intensity versus consistency. And what's fascinating with intensity is we overweight the intense events. And what we have found, the right rhythm for an intense event is twice a year. Do less, it's like you kind of forget it too much. Do more than that, you'll see it's too much work. Doing 2 special events, different ones, twice a year is the right rhythm. And then consistency, though, is the bigger role. I would actually say that when it comes to the real value, 95% of it comes from consistency. Yet you'll find like almost 80–90% of what is remembered and talked about comes from the intensity, which is why it's very confusing. Where you think if we do more intense, we'll increase, no. You gotta do a stronger, easier consistency. And consistency, by the way, I didn't realize this weekend, the book Atomic Habits had 10 million copies sold. That's like the number of like the Bible and like, getting to build very few books reach that kind of number. And this notion of the biggest problems in life, the more recurring problems, you should attack it with a habit. And a habit, most people who don't have much reps and skills in building habits, they overdo it. It's one of the first signals usually of someone who is really weak-muscled at habits. They overcommit and they overdo it, and the thing is they can't sustain it. Habits work because it has to, at some point, happen so automatically, it takes very little decision effort. Like, if you have to put too much effort to make the habit happen, it's a bad habit. So I think about the notion of automatic, the plumbing, right? So the consistency, the single most important element of consistency is weekly. The monthly can have a little peak, and then it feeds into intensity, where you think about something intense. Usually what tends to happen is it lasts virally for 2-3 weeks at most. Everyone says, wow, a lot of life-changing event, and Megan always said, it's not life-changing.
It's week-changing.
It's week-changing. They forget about it.
But I just maybe even just to give an example, I think just to kind of make this more concrete, you're probably all reading it in that middle column around family, just as an example, because twice a year vacation is nice with the family. Maybe you go away 1 week in the summer, you go away 1 week in the winter, and you talk about it. But really, a few weeks after, it's as if you never went, right? And you have pictures and you document it, and that's why documentation is important. But that's not enough, right? That's not like, it's like saying,
part here, right?
Yeah, it's like saying I go on vacation twice a year with my family, and that's enough for what I need with my family, and that's just not the case. And just, it's unfortunate, but we do forget about it as.
But I think families tend to have 2 big vacations a
You
year.
do maybe 2 vacations a year. But the idea of like a Sunday dinner, you're saying, like as an example, that's the weekly.
The Sunday dinner will be the most important element, right?
Yeah.
Although we'll put emphasis on the vacation, the big ones, we might even put emphasis on the monthly, like you go apple picking or some event, go to the museum once a month.
Right.
And you'll see when you overdo this stuff, it falls apart. It can't sustain, right? So over the years, we had an amazing program called Avengers that got reinforced by Top 10, but most important was Coroneas, which occurred weekly, all in recognition. So some of you don't know about this, but if you know the history, we did a lot on learning. And situational workshops was a 4-on-1 mentoring that occurred weekly for people. Then we had typically 10X or CEO talks, some of you familiar with 10X monthly. But then on a big level, especially for our top leadership, we would have 2 major offsites. One was in Martha's Vineyard, where an investor gave us a property, and it's like a week-long learning. But then the other one was like a field trip on visiting, whether it was going to visit Navy SEALs, going to visit, all different types of organizations over the years. And we brought some of you along for West Point one recently and whatnot. So kind of going all the way to the right for this community, let me walk you through sort of where we are looking to move very quick. So this leadership in practice class, which is, by the way, like church, open to the public, we're gonna look to move it into, when we say TTT, it stands for train the trainers. But it's gonna be kind of it's open learning, meaning anyone can come and observe. And so we're gonna look to tighten and shorten, which usually is more on me, of the talk itself, the lesson of insights that we share, but use it to help train leadership coaches. And so a lot of, examples, and some of you might even submit questions and challenges beforehand, so anyone can come and observe. And that's the online version. Premium COA, so we have 3 offices, one in London, one in Boston, and New York being the headquarters. And Premium COA, COA stands for Community Online Academy, once again got created in COA, right? But Premium, during COVID. Premium is the word we added because we believe in this digital era. Physical is the new premium. And so the plumbing we built in 3 offices is breakfast, lunch, dinner, fully catered, and some are even more impressive than others. I know Boston has this top Chinese chef doing crazy things, and every Thursday. But New York, we've got not only 3-star Michelin level chef Danny, but we have fresh sushi. But we've got bartender, we got a DJ. I mean, it's social hour. It's like at a church they do coffee hour, right? Typically donuts, cookies, maybe pie, and some coffee. That's usually not so tasty. Korean churches do crazy stuff. They go full-on meals. But over here, we have kind of what I would call a cooler, hipper version in New York. But
We like to think
but at the same time, a church would be very upset if you only showed up for coffee hour,
Yes,
or only showed up for the free lunch. We also would be kind of upset, but we want to open up invitations for any active leadership coach. So we have many different modules that we're training people on. So any of the Thursdays, if you send a note to any of the next jumpers here, or New York, or Boston, or London, any active coach, I'm kind of welcome to attend from here forward, right? But you have to be active coach, not past coach and whatnot, active. And then, LTT and stuff, we have smaller workshops that are by invite only that occur in the afternoon. On a monthly basis, so I know we created Fermentation Friday. The idea was cool, but it was really confusing because it was the first Friday of the month, but the class is taught on the Thursday prior to that, and everyone got very confused. So we got confused too.
The idea was you would do it with your family on Friday, but we're teaching it on Thursday, and so
it didn't work in the naming. So I don't know if this is the right naming, Tasty Thursday.
If anybody has ideas on this, we need something that sounds good with a Thursday, because it can't be Thirsty Thursday, because it's not about drinking, it's about, eating healthy but delicious. Healthy and delicious.
So the first Thursday of every month, we will broadcast what happens in New York, but Boston and London will do something special as well. So I don't know, Danny, do you have a concept for next Thursday in mind at all yet, or too early?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
No, we're gonna do the soup you like.
Oh,
Okay, we're gonna combine the fermented encurtidos in the soup,
So since the colder winter months, Danny's been doing bone broth is super healthy and good for you in many different ways. And this thing cooks all week long, and every day a new ingredient goes in. So the thing is just, it's like a living soup.
And I had no idea you can leave it on the stove overnight. Obviously, if it's really hot during the day, but you can leave it there.
But there are nuances. There are nuances. You mentioned you can't close it, otherwise bacteria grows open. So all these things. So Danny, next Thursday at 11 for LIP, we'll broadcast it live. We'll be teaching the group how to make kind of this bone broth soup. And then all kinds of tips and whatnot. But the people who come that Thursday will be able to experience the soup that's been made already, right? So cooking shows show you how to make it, and they're like, oh, by the way, we have 4 turkeys already made, right? So it'll boom, pop out. And so it's kind of like a monthly special. And I think about, we always say healthy and delicious. Michelin level delicious, but one of those, if you're one of those nutrition food nuts, combine those two. If like a complete vegan nutrition fanatic married a Michelin thing, and Danny always says they use too much white powder, right? Whether it's flour, sugar, or whatnot. If they two married and had a child, it would be Danny, because that's what Danny does, and he is at the top of the notch across the globe of what he's done. So you will not meet a guy better in this field than him. And so
some of the ideas were Thursday flavors, Thriving Thursday, or Tutoralicious Thursday. Kimmy, I have no idea what that means.
But think a name for food.
Tutoring.
But think a name for food. We will have a leadership whatnot. So the Tasty Thursday, by the way, will be open to anybody. So, but you have to request a seat. So we have to cut off capacity in different parts. So send, even for now, maybe the default is, at least in New York, send an email to megachar@nextjump, which hits both Mega and I. But so if you wanted to, if you're not an active coach, but that Tasty Thursday is a fun way to come and experience food and whatnot. And then going to intensity, so people have been asking us, when's your next Leadership Academy? There's a couple things happening. We are moving almost all leadership academies as a way to do an offsite for large enterprises. We're doing a lot of activity helping train and coach large enterprises of all sizes. And we do on-sites in their location, but if they want to run it as an offsite, we'll do it here. So a lot of spaces, unfortunately, will have to go to that. But we are looking to hold, and we're looking at tentative dates, like ideally April, October, or April, August, TTT Academy. So this is
Train the trainer.
focused on not only active coaches, but the top of the active coaches to come and experience some of the most cutting edge things, or bring experts in and doing all kinds of cool things, 2 days occurring. And this will happen most likely in our New York office. We might do it simultaneously if it grows too big, between Boston and New York, which we've done before virtually as well as things that happen together. But right as of now in New York City, so keep that in mind as well. And this combination of developing a community, and you will start to see a lot of things occurring on Thursdays here, from not only what could be Hawaii and golfers to the groups in Avenues, the private school who has schools in China, Brazil, Silicon Valley, and New York, to whether it's youth learning and basketball, to now what might even be Catalonia, it might be entrepreneurs from Founders Institute. So a lot of different things kind of colliding all on the same day in different ways. Moving on really quick, sorry.
It's just on the calendar,
yeah,
that's
so-
the Tasty Thursday,
So
next.
today is the 26th, so next Thursday, first one. So just,
The other thing, I can't remember if we mentioned it last week, we're gonna be in London, I think maybe we did,
Right.
on February 16th.
it wasn't confirmed fully, but now it's.
So we're running a one-day leadership event there, so if you're interested in that, let us know, we have limited
So,
seats for that. but-
actually, for that one, email Kevin
and Graham.
McCoy and Graham, if you know, maybe Laura, you can put their
Email.
emails in.
It's in London.
Yeah, we'll be in London running a special leadership academy. We haven't been in London very long in our office, so a very long time, 12 years, to be honest, which is very long. Bad for CEOs to not do that, but video is amazing, right? So, but we will be there, and from what I'm seeing, we're seeing some really high-powered names. I think the heads of learning, maybe out of Apple, right, as in, Apple, the iPhone Apple, all the way to like
I think they know what Apple is,
GCHQ.
yeah.
Apple would be like,
Yeah.
it's also the name of a child, and it's also the name of a fruit. There's a lot of apples.
Are you on something right now? Okay.
I'm just clarifying.
Okay, yeah.
There's
The GCHQ.
GCHQ, which is kind of.
Like the CIA of the United Kingdom, we were getting that right?
Maybe it's not the CIA, but
No?
it's like one of those
What is it?
MI6 CIA, like kind of,
Okay.
whatever secretive bad stuff people do, like all the hidden, whatever, all the movies, James Bond.
James Bond.
It's where James Bond comes from, right? I think their head of learning, I think he's looking at 10 as well. So really cool group of people. And then I think on the 3rd, we're gonna be doing some stuff.
Caesar thinks we're nuts, and I take that as a compliment. He's like, you guys are nuts. Yes, we are. He loves us. He's like.
When someone tells you you're nuts, it's a
No,
compliment.
it's such a
to your
compliment.
face.
Thank you.
When you say
Thank
it
you.
behind our back, it's an insult.
Thank
So
you.
we take
No,
that
we
as a-
totally appreciate that. That's how we feel right now.
But just really quick, community building. I love this simple tweet, which is the frame of maximizing serendipity as opposed to assertive or being passive. I was just talking to the Catalonia team saying,
Yeah.
how many people go in with hidden agendas? And it comes up, and that's just being assertive and just,
Well,
it's annoying at
it's
times,
annoying
right?
at times,
Like,
yeah.
you're not there to try to sometimes enjoy, you're like, I gotta say something, I gotta get something
Right,
out of this.
right.
Passive is the other side, right? Which is like, I just.
Well, it relies a lot on willpower, right? To be assertive or maybe trained to be
complete
assertive or to
opposite
be
is
completely
passive,
opposite, right? Right.
Sometimes I'm here for obligation, I'm like, you don't have to come, I have to come, I'm like, this has many different things, but as opposed to maximizing serendipity. And that's the key.
Increasing your odds of good things happening or mending
And-
relationships or
and-
whatever it might be. Yeah.
And why this is so important is in this new world, and we talked last week about 2 forms of decision-making, reactive versus proactive decision-making. Proactive is the skill you need to navigate unknown, uncertainty. Reactive is when someone knows what to do, so they give you direction. This community building, this serendipity matters more when you need to come up with innovation, new ideas, new
Right.
solutions, because oftentimes after the fact, you're like, wow, I never thought of that. I didn't see that one coming. That comes because of the right environment, the right setup. And so that's kind of what you're seeing here. Coming back to the Yale article, I just want to focus on a few things because this topic of arguing is one that is very misunderstood. So I'm just going to highlight some of the parts in this article. So instead of trying to win every argument you find, this is actually in the article, you find yourself in, you could have more success if you look at arguments as opportunities to learn and grow. Being willing to hear out other perspectives and engage in dialogue that isn't simply meant to convince the other person you're right can lead to all sorts of unexpected insights. The real tension of trying to understand the fork, which side are you in? Are you arguing to win or are you arguing to learn? And I think when we think about arguing, we don't even realize what's happening inside us. The arguing to learn group, they found, would be less likely to believe there was a single set answer to the debate at hand. People who argue to win, they took a hard line and only saw one right answer. Said another way, arguing to win tends to be much more closed-minded. Arguing to learn has an open-mindedness. It's not to say you have no opinion, because you realize we all have opinions. We just don't realize or share it. But they're more agile. They're more open to, that data point was not in my consideration, and it changes my conclusion, my argument. And then Fisher and his colleagues found that the arguing to learn mentality doesn't come naturally. Most people's debating default is an arguing to win mindset. Now, this is something that we're not going to be aware of. And like we've said, unlearning is harder than learning. The older we are, the more experienced you are, the more successful you are, this unlearning is going to be harder. The younger you are, the more naive you are. It's like, I really think of it as like food. The palate of children is so unsophisticated. Their instinct is, oh, I hate everything. And it's just it's a palate that has to learn. When you get to an adult, you have, don't like bananas, don't like pizza, curry, don't like.
I know who we're talking about here in this example.
Just trying to think
I'm
of some
opening up to
example.
that.
That's true.
The playable thing has been in it, and I'm going with it.
Yes.
This has been like a 45-year
But
journey.
I mean, food's a perfect
Okay.
example,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the older you get, like you literally have a nope.
Yeah.
And what I love with Danny and what I've seen people
Very
change,
rigid, you
including
get
my-
very rigid.
Yeah,
you
but
get
it's like you know,
Yeah, you
right?
know.
There's a level of certainty,
Yes.
right? And what is awesome is when people like come to, and Danny was in fine dining, so fine dining, you pay a crap load of money, so you get to be a pain in the ass. I need to know what's in here, and I'm allergic to like these 12 things, and I need to know how you made this, and it's like, he's like, can you just try it? Before they even take a bite, they want to kind of like put a hot lamp and digest it, and then they're like, I don't like it before even trying it. So what Danny's done over the years, he doesn't even tell you what it is and wants you to try it.
Yeah.
Right? And oftentimes I love the way he'll say, I want you to like almost eat it like a caveman. Just you have to down the whole thing. You just scoop from the bottom. Like it's a very aggressive,
It's aggressive.
as opposed to
Yeah.
people like to.
He wants you to get all the flavors in the one bite.
Yeah, he always say just like the bowl right in your face versus people that I'm just gonna
I think
take
that's a lesson that
tweezers.
you took. I know, yes.
Yeah, but it's true, right?
Yeah, but can you imagine you taking a spoon and
He's
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah, people,
the
yeah.
whole palate
You'll get
testing,
the whole-
you need to.
It's built
I've learned a lot by
it's
this.
built to experience the
Yeah.
full thing together.
You can't take a
And
Maggie
it's
bite,
like,
you can't take
yeah,
a
like
Maggie
you take, it's almost like taking a tweezer-sized spoon and you'd be like, I'm gonna taste this topping and this topping. And as soon as you get something you don't like, you're like, I don't like it.
Yes.
Right? And the point being, you'll see
Yeah.
that it takes an expert like Danny,
Yeah.
and I've seen him change a lot of people's palates, and even adults who are like, kind of like,
It's okay.
oh, like I thought I hated curry and last time
I've
I ate curry.
accepted this, that I
Yes.
was picky. I'm less
But
picky.
unlearning is hard, and just to recognize how that just is normal. And I love even normalizing the Yale professor saying, this doesn't come naturally, right?
Yeah,
Right,
Kimmy
sorry.
was asking, can it work if one person is arguing to win and the other is arguing to learn? Work as in getting it right.
So when you say, will it work? First I will say, let's just normalize the fact that most people are gonna be in that situation. If you happen to be the one who is now repping and practicing arguing to learn, you're gonna be surrounded in real life with probably 99% of people that, even what Fisher found, right? Arguing to win.
Right.
And even just recognizing that.
Yes,
Like,
that's
I-
awareness
like,
of
I-
that,
like I always
right.
say sometimes, like, do you ever argue with someone and then, I don't know if you had this, but
Mm-hmm.
I've had to be reminded of this sometimes with Megan, but where she would tell me, you're arguing with a 5-year-old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know how we can forget who we're arguing with,
Right.
right?
You
It's like-
argue with Olivia,
Yeah, no, I
she's
know,
nine like
I know,
that.
I know. Sometimes like I forget, like I'm like thinking I'm talking to an adult and
Yeah.
we're arguing and then I realize, and it's almost
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
get the, can you act like the adult? She's 9,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I started doing that at 5, but there's something similar. It's amazing the power of awareness. Even just being aware that you're arguing to learn and they're arguing to win
Will make you
change the
pause.
subtlety of your tone and what you press on.
Right.
And sometimes when you're arguing with someone who's arguing to win, you know just one little word
Oh,
could just blow. It's like you might as well throw gunpowder on them when they're already flared up. Like, don't
Being
do it.
aware of that, right.
You're aware of it. Like, you don't need to go make that happen. So just there's all these elements of realizing what the norm is gonna be, but also just getting awareness first, right?
Monica was asking, how do you argue to learn? So,
Okay, so
what types of questions, arguments, or do you follow that makes a difference?
this slide was on our initial cut of the culture tour since last November. And it's fascinating because, you know, as we go through, there are things we get wrong. Renter mindset we talked about is someone who is just vibing and kind of focusing on the present. And the brain works in 3 parts, right? It parses apart things into the present, memory of the past, and then our future outlook or prediction. And we said an owner mindset uses 10 times the amount of brain power, right? You're using all 3 compartments together. However, the mistake was this. We looked at owner mindset starting at, you know, usually you see something, right? And we react to it,
Right.
Like, you know.
In the present,
Yeah, it's
something
like
happens.
Russia invaded Ukraine. Oh my God, what's my, you know, like you might have different memories or movies or whatnot, and then it goes into what I think is gonna happen next. Like either it could be, oh my God, we're all gonna die, or oh my God, it's not even gonna matter. Like there's different reactions we have. And it goes, our mind literally works present, past, future, right? The mistake was this, if we're gonna redraw this, reactive decision-making is that, using all 100%, but starts with the initiated data point from the present. Proactive decision-making is different. It starts with the future first, then based on the action you take, it shows up a reaction or some proof in the present, which then now goes into the past and then you iterate forward.
Right.
Meaning navigating unknown. There's nothing to react to because it's never been done, it's all new. And there is a difference because in the industrial age, the last 100 years, I would say the #1 employee, if you want to be MVP in a company, you were at the top of the reactive decision-making skills. Meaning, like I used to hear from, we have 100 investors invested, or the heads of major companies, they would always say, you know, the best employees, you can meet with them, you throw a few words, you throw just a tiny direction on a napkin, and they go, and not only do they do it, they exceed your expectations.
mind.
They add so much others and whatnot, but it still initiates off of one tiny or something. The worst reactive decision makers, you have to literally bullet point a micromanaged direction of 1 to 20,
Right.
and then check in with them to make sure they're still doing that, right? But like, that's still reactive. And so I would say the 20th century owner's mindset was reactive decision making. The 21st century, there's a new standard. And this is that much harder than reactive because it's upon you to set that direction. That one thought, one word, and whatnot. And by the way, when it goes wrong, which shows up pretty fast in today's knowledge era, is nobody's fault but yours. And that's where it's scary. The difference is someone else gave you direction,
Right.
and you might have done their direction wrong. The other side of you initiating the direction, exposing it, and your neck is on the line. That's the sticking the neck out. So that was the piece we got wrong, but we're gonna correct and move forward, and that's what the last class was. And why this is important, it's gonna come back to this arguing to learn. You have to recognize most things are this on the very left of this thing, team to mission, right? Think of mission as the environment, like kind of situational assessment, what's in front of you. And then the lever to do everything now is people above all else. And when people get it wrong, you get disasters of all sorts. And when people get it right, you get success. On the left, in the 100-year change that occurred, the majority of work that human beings touched was straightforward work. The very few people that touched the not straightforward stuff, usually it was the CEO of the company, the very top person. And I would say even in government, it's probably the president, right? Like not even the head of the, it's like goes that high up. It was such a small percentage that really was doing the not straightforward work. The work we did with people who trained the top of the top, the best, Jim Lears,
Yeah.
would talk about just the mental terror they had, the imposter syndrome. I remember he would read to us 3 pages of handwritten self-evaluations they did before the training. He would read it to the class, and you would read it, and you'd be like, who are these losers?
Yeah.
These dysfunctional, psychopathic losers. And he reads it, and he's saying, this is written by you guys, about yourself, right? That was your mental chatter.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like, and you look around, you're like, you run a 100,000 person company, you run the Department of Education of the state, like, that was what happens when you hit not straightforward.
Because they have so much paranoia. Are they making the right calls? Because they're making it up.
It's just the terror, right? Of everything is on the line. And to recognize this major shift of what's happening in work. And so straightforward work produced more reactive decision-making skills, and that's the old skills. Following instruction, micromanage is the worst, right? And then the best is just 1 or 2 words, just a nudge, and then boom, you impress. On the right side, totally different. It's upon you, working in small teams, and teams that start with size of 2, literally being proactive in what you not only sense make, but do, and then iterate. And this unlearning of this skill is gonna be one of the hardest things we believe just out in the world right now for people. Now, I wanna take you and shift gears something that's related, which is around ChatGPT and AI. It's just in the news like crazy. And this is a perspective on ChatGPT from Megan and I, which is gonna be different, I think, than what you'll find out there. A lot of talk about whether it's ethical, moral, a lot of talk about who does it better, a lot of talk about, just the technical aspects of it. Is it better than search and whatnot? Our view is gonna be tied to our life's work and our expertise on understanding human psychology and understanding leadership decision-making. And so think of it this way. Last 100 years, the boss, right, was the one who did proactive decision-making. The boss, or even in school, the teacher had the right answer, right? Is nudging the students to go in a direction. You, and there's a lot of yous, right? Generally speaking, the best yous were good reactive decision makers or good students. You know that classic question as a student when you're listening, is this gonna be on the test? Because if it is, I'm engaging all of you, right? Is this important to you? Because I'll engage in it, if not, I'm not even listening, right? And if you think of what you're doing in reactive decision-making, you're listening for instruction, you're listening for prompts from the boss or the teacher. Okay, flip this equation now, right? And I'll give you examples of this with ChatGPT, AI, right? You are the driver of that instruction and prompt. The boss before drove the instruction and prompt. It is upon you, and that is not easy, it's a skill. If you drive better instruction or better prompts, the AI works better. If you don't, the AI works worse. So I'll give you just a plain English example Megan and I are talking about, right? Just as like spouses fight all the time, right? About silly stuff. One of them is with the dishwasher, right? And I've seen this more with wives to husbands. Can you just empty the dishwasher, right? Just get angry about this. So you think about, imagine if you had an AI-powered one of those robots now as a husband instead of your husband now, right? And you say to the AI husband, right? When the dishwasher is full, empty it.
Empty it.
So you know what it'll do? It'll be full, but hasn't run yet and dirty. It'll empty the dirty dishes, boom, into the shelf. You'll be like, oh no, I have to refine the prompt. Empty the dishwasher after it's run. Right? If it's full, run it, right? And so you see how and what ChatGPT and these AI things are doing is it's letting you refine these prompts, and the better the prompt is, they get it done. And unlike a, human husband, they never get it wrong once you get the prompt, right? How many people say, oh, I forgot this time. Yes. And so now you get in these fights. How many times to repeat myself, right? Like with the robot, when it's a straightforward task, once you prompted it, they will do it with precision every time. And when you do something wrong, so you can build on it. So you refine the prompt. And what's happening is this, the job that you used to do is now moving to AI or lower skilled, cheaper labor. What happened with COVID that most people don't realize is that now with work from home and remote and everything else, you're competing against the global labor population. And we're finding this in our own business too. We're hiring a lot of labor that we hire from the Philippines and other countries that is maybe a quarter or a fifth of the cost. And when the work is straightforward, they get it done really well.
I mean, I know we're gonna come back to this at the end, but this quote of AI is not gonna replace you, but it's a person who's using the
it's in
AI, I know it's in here,
Yeah.
but it's way back, it's like way at the
Oh,
end.
sorry.
But it's the person who's using the AI, I mean, it's like having a really great assistant who is gonna do it better than anyone, so it's not the AI, right? There's like that whole debate where AI is like, no, it's the person using it. The better you get it, instructing or prompting the robot, you just got, you don't need a human to do it.
So there's been a lot of news now, like about ChatGPT and what it's doing, and this is an example of passing the law school exam, right?
Yeah.
Students study like hell for law school and you have to pass it. They talked about how it passed the medical exam, right? So literally is having a higher and faster accuracy rate than doctors, lawyers, right? Wharton School, the MBA exam, it passed as well. So a lot of chatter about like, wait, these exams, like you're forcing human beings to go memorize a thing that the thing literally passed in seconds, right? Its knowledge is more accurate when it comes to an exam. So is the exam the right one, right? This guy talked about ChatGPT can solve all these questions. They'll revamp education, so it's not solely based on memorization, right? He's like, laugh out loud. Now they'll just institute increasingly drastic punishments for using ChatGPT, which will be banned, right? So now here's what was cool. This Wharton professor did this. He created a policy for his students on how to use AI in the classroom. Some of the brightest I see out there in education, even non-education, is saying, let's embrace this. It's like the cat's out of the bag, right? You don't want to not know how to use this, and this, like everything, is a skill. And so just diving in deeper, like this is some of what's in here. One is, and I'll tell you how learning to argue, arguing to learn is identical to the notion of probing skills or prompting skills. And so, versus the opposite, of course, is that classic conflict avoidance is avoiding arguing, right? And that's an immune problem, an immune system. So looking at his thing, the part I highlighted in green, if you provide minimum effort prompts, you will get low quality results. You need to refine your prompts in order to get good outcomes. This will take work. Most people who observed me and Megan coach, the number one thing they keep asking is, can you teach me probing skills? How are you probing and getting that much information out that fast? As if it's like, oh, you know what, it's simple. You ask these 3 questions, you always get the right answer. Ain't gonna happen like that. You know, last week we showed the article that Tim Furbish sent. The number one challenge with human beings is that we're adaptable creatures, meaning everyone's adapting to everything constantly. The minute you try to do those 3 questions, they adapt to it already. It's like playing a game of poker, where as soon as you think you figured out someone's tell, they adapt, right? They adjust, and so that's the hard part. It's like a moving landscape trying to work with people. Everyone's adapting to everyone everywhere, and the sooner it becomes mainstream news, adapted already, right? And so recognizing that crazy moving landscape, how do you build the reps and skills in prompting well, in probing well, in other ways, arguing to learn well, right? How do you inject into an argument so you get more insight as opposed to I'm trying to win? The quote at the bottom, right? After all, for the technology to generate an image or an essay, a human still has to prescribe the task to be completed. The better that description, the more accurate, more detailed, and better the results. I'll show you some cool, kind of crazy example that's been on the internet. Before I forget though, this was my son who is 13 or 14? 14.
Just turned 14.
Just turned 14, right? So 14. This was his report card 2 weeks ago.
No judgment, sorry.
Okay? Sorry.
Sorry.
It's like, I know the approximate age, 13, 14.
Well, they
right?
just, both of our kids both just turned
But,
grade.
so Jackson, he's at School Avenues. His report card came, right? I'm reading the report card. At the end of the report card, there's this cutting edge class called HIP, human, like something.
A high intensity practice.
And in it, of course, instead of the
Oh, it's like
teacher.
throwing your stuff like
sorry.
it's crazy.
But instead the teacher writing the comment is brilliant. He has the students write it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it must be nice because you don't have to even do anything, right? But, so this is Jackson writing, but he writes about experiencing and learning about ChatGPT, this first part, right? And I was like, wait, 2 weeks ago the report card came. That means he had to have been doing this even before that. ChatGPT hit mainstream very recently. That's freaking impressive.
Yeah.
The guy's in 8th grade, and the school adopted it so fast that before even the debates got going,
really
his
impressive.
teacher was teaching the students how to interact and prompt with it to the point where it came in the report card. That I was like, whoa. That made me happy for the school that I'm paying $1 gazillion for him to attend, because I was like, that's cool. So here's some cool stuff in ChatGPT, right? This guy wrote, in his French, oh my fucking God, right? And reacting to what's in here, and I'll read to you what's in here, which is his prompt to ChatGPT is compose a message announcing a 7% reduction in headcount while also promoting executives to new titles and also include a quote from Martin Luther King. Second, dear team, I am writing to inform you that we will be implementing a 7% reduction in headcount across the company. This decision was not made lightly, but it is necessary in order to ensure the long-term success of our organization. At the same time, I am pleased to announce a promotion of several executives to new titles within the company. These individuals have demonstrated exceptional leadership and dedication, and we are confident that they will continue to make valuable contributions to our team. I understand that this news may be difficult for some of you, but as Martin Luther King Jr. said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Let us all strive to rise to this challenge and continue to work towards our shared goals.
Got a sense of irony.
But also, like, if you think about it, somebody might say, I've been working on this write-up this week, boss, it's taken me a few days, I got it. It's like,
Do you know the amount of time
any leader
the
would take to
PR
write
team,
that.
the HR
Yeah, you need
team,
some time to get that right.
the passing this around, right, editing and whatnot? Basically, the number of copies of great letters are out there that it just in seconds created it. Someone that in the chat thread said, like, I'm assuming you just kind of photoshopped this thing, asked the exact same prompt, same thing popped out. It's like, holy shit.
he didn't believe
this
it,
is written,
yeah.
right?
Can ChatGPT cook?
You better watch out. That's Danny's trying to think you can't, but
He's like,
watch out,
no.
right? But so here's the next thing. Benny said it developed a little bit of ethics, I guess, right? There's rules built in. So he prompted, compose a message announcing a 20% reduction in headcount while also promoting executives with titles and incentive bonuses for the board for headcount reduction, and be sure to include a quote from Mussolini. Okay? So
I can't fulfill that request.
right? The content of the message you've asked me to compose includes ideas and language that are not only inappropriate, but also offensive. It is not appropriate to use a quote from Mussolini, as he was a fascist dictator who promoted racist and discriminatory ideologies. Additionally, it is not appropriate to promote executives and offer incentive bonuses for reducing headcount, as this could be seen as valuing financial gain over the well-being of employees.
So it's
right?
sharing judgment.
Okay.
Judgment bad with you.
Okay, but so, and then this is the guy who said laugh out loud. Sorry, I should have put another slide. You try the same prompt and it works, right?
Yeah.
So then here's the crazy part. He said, well, I tried it again. I coaxed Stalin out of it. So the prompt was write an announcement for layoffs of 7%, a promotion of the owner's brother to CEO, and that the company is moving locations. Be sure to include an appropriate quote from Stalin.
Appropriate.
Right? Some said Stalin was more
That's
evil
the
than
prompt.
Hitler.
See, the detail?
So it says, it is with heavy heart that we announce the layoffs affecting 7% of our workforce. These difficult decisions were made in an effort to restructure and streamline the company, allowing us to better compete in today's marketplace. We understand the impact this will have on our affected employees and their families, and we will be providing assistance to help with the transition. On a more positive note, we are thrilled to announce a promotion of owner's brother's name to the position of CEO. Owner's brother name has been an invaluable member of our team for many years and has demonstrated exceptional leadership skills, strategic thinking, and a deep understanding of our company's mission and values. We also want to inform you that our company is moving to a new location, which will allow us to expand our operations and better serve our customers. In quotes, we must learn to think and act as a single collective body. Joseph Stalin. We understand that this is a lot of change, but we're confident by working together as a team and by continuing to focus on our mission, we will come out stronger and more competitive. This is just a crazy example of learning to argue, learning to give instruction, prompts, probing. And if you look at the actual probes on ChatGPT, it's not like 20 lines micromanaged.
No, right.
Like,
It's
it's,
very subtle, those specific prompts, right?
and so this is the quote Megan was referencing. AI will not replace you, but a person who knows how to use AI will replace you. That's the same as you're doing your work. I'm coming to work with a computer that can do 10,000 employees, industrial age employee type work with perfection based on my prompts. They were saying there's a whole write-up about doctors and how little doctors know about nutrition and the impact of it. You just turn on ChatGPT and let it contribute in the discussion. So as the patient, the doctor's Google searching medical Google of all the stuff. The doctor knowing how to use ChatGPT with their knowledge will literally outcompete any doctor who is not doing that.
Right.
That's an example of kind of what is happening. So this notion of recognizing what is accelerating the shift, the old way, the new way, this is a fucking different world. And if you don't get your head on straight, you're gonna keep holding on to something and you will be replaced by the person who's embraced the proactive decision-making skills combined with the power of technology. And so this is kind of the big element of what we're talking about. Kind of what I said. You gotta learn how to attack like what we call the dark work, any work that is not straightforward. And if you ask employees now, and it's like, you ask anyone, there's not a job at any level that people aren't saying, it's not straightforward anymore. And we were talking with the president of the PGA, the people who have the most not straightforward work, this was the joke you were saying. He's like, you know the days I dream about? I dream about just going to the golf course and just picking up balls.
Well, that's part of his
Right?
job, and he loves it. It's like the
No,
hours
it's
a week
no,
he
no,
loves.
no, it's not his job. He was making a joke.
Oh, I
That's
thought
what
he was saying he does that when
No.
he really wants to, yeah.
Megan and I joke around that we want a job just like, I don't know.
Like Maggie
like-
wants to be a doorman for a few days, yeah, like stuff like that. I
Just-
just wanna like talk to
like-
people, chat, complete bullshit.
No, I would
Just
like to
nothing.
like
I would like
do
to shut my
something like
brain off
that. Just
completely.
something
Yeah.
that just kind of
Yeah.
is like, I'd
Yeah,
like to be
just-
like, I don't know, like even a building cleaning crew for a day. I wouldn't mind doing
Oh,
that. Like maybe not every day, but like.
Vacuuming is so therapeutic.
But I mean,
was
like,
made
no,
for
and you know, we did it when they shut down in
Yeah.
COVID and we found out how to use that robo vacuum and all
yeah.
kinds of, it's like just,
Yeah.
like, but even then we were applying not straightforward, proactive stuff. Like, I'm saying like, sometimes you just wanna do brainless work, right? And like literally, the president of the Hawaii PGA, his dream was having some day just goes and picks up golf balls, right? Now, would he wanna do it every day and get paid at the rate that
Right.
someone gets? No, doesn't wanna do that.
Doesn't wanna do that.
But, this was interesting, when you search linear thinking, it's defined as a systematic and analytical thought process that follows a known step-by-step progression similar to a straight line. Most people are doing linear thinking. So what is the opposite of it? It's this. Creative problem solving starts by taking a problem, which takes a while to understand it, by the way. There's an entire process that comes before the problem. Most people don't even understand the problem. Even this president of the PGA was saying, I don't think we understand the problem. The challenge is happening at work, and we're getting some crazy notes back from leaders of, Fortune 500 companies, talking about how nobody understands the problem right now.
Right.
But even when you get to the problem, to solve it, you need divergent thinking. Said another way, you're arguing and making it personal, like, because argument, you know when people do that, like, let's talk about arguing calmly, right? You'll see there's a tempo and speed of it that also matters. I was actually thinking, sorry, we have a note here, maybe for, I don't know why, I feel like Mike will be able to help with this. We'll talk more about just reaction time. On the right side of all the training, reaction time matters a lot. It drives me nuts, the slow
When you
reaction.
say the right side of the train, what do you mean by the right side?
So the left side being immune system, the
Okay,
right
yeah.
side being the
Yeah,
kind of leadership and decision making, proactive decision making. But two people, it takes two people to take unknown and divergent thinking. And what's happening is you're exploring options and choices, possibilities. You're creating choices that beyond what's obvious and what you see. Then comes a point where you have to do the reverse. You have to do convergent thinking. You're trying to now make choices, decide what to do narrow.
And by human, I think the default of human beings is to not let that divergence happen, right? It's so uncomfortable.
It stresses people out.
It's so stressful. You have to like suspend your desire to get an outcome or, and I think a lot of us have, I struggle with this. I want to get that decision checked off my list so I can, you know, in my brain, I could file that one as done and move to the next one. Like, it's such a deep
How many
desire
of
to
you,
get that done.
how many of you have, like, my head is
Make a
spinning because too
decision.
many things
Yeah.
aren't completed,
Just make a
right?
freaking decision.
And the act of just completing it,
Yeah.
is, there's a place where that's the right thought.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to realize it's also because we hate leaving divergent thinking. You want a conversion and just go from problem to solution, I can forget
So
about it,
hard, yeah.
right? And that suspense, and in fact, the first set of training we created, we said, the sense making, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you have to separate that from the action,
Right,
right? From the judgment.
Right.
And people struggle with that. It's like kind of like information, decide.
Decide,
right?
right.
And so we even said in the military, OODA, it's
Right.
OOD
and then.
and then the A.
Right.
But people think of OODA, it's
Right.
all in one,
All
no?
in one.
And this is exactly what, once again, is an unlearning component. Which is kind of coming back to the.
If you need tissue instead of a paper towel.
I just have one more slide and then we'll do
I know we
some.
have some questions in the chat.
This was from Ray Dalio. Bridgewater was the other company when Harvard did a study of the future of work and said, the future of work basically trains people better, called it a learning organization. And the top two they found was Bridgewater, biggest hedge fund in the world, founded by Ray Dalio, and NextJump. And so, you know, Ray Dalio tweets a lot, but it's interesting. He was talking about, since you don't have time to thoroughly examine everyone's thinking to yourself, meaning do not take this previous slide and say, okay, let me go and have a divergent thinking discussion in every topic with anyone, right? That will be exhausting. And you know I know we all have people in our lives, I don't care for their opinion. In fact, they're like, but can I?
Yeah.
Please don't,
Right.
please don't, right? Like, because it takes effort
Right.
to actually engage, listen, and then examine their thinking, right, against yours. Said another way, don't go argue with everyone out there, right? Plain English, right? That would be the most useless waste of energy and emotional, mental, and your life will be miserable, right? So his point was choose your believability people wisely. We always say who first. Selection of who, then engage. And so, by the way, the very training program we built on this right side of leadership, call it Module 3. Mod 10X stands for Modify 10X. It's 1 hour a week training in groups of 10 with a leadership coach. What it's teaching you to do is divergent thinking. And then you have to converge as you diverge. And you're allowing the 10 individuals to test 5 different, we call them TPs, training partners. You're experiencing a set, as opposed to kind of any human being out there. You're staying with a consistent group of 10, but you're testing 5 different teaming relationships to have diversion and conversion. Module 4, which will be the 13-week program that comes after Module 3, is now coming back to TPs. You will actually pair up with one individual. And I said plus small elite teams. I love this model we took from how Navy SEALs and Special Ops units work. They're teams of 2, but some projects need 6 people. Let's get 3 teams of 2. Sometimes you need 20 people. We'll get, the whole team of 10 plus another group of 10, and they work kind of building blocks of 2 moving up that way. And this is now learning divergent to convergent training, but now attacking, because of the consistency on the who, everything. You might even come from different companies, but you'll be making their job and your job our job as a team. You might actually be in different families. You'll make their life issues your issue. And then this idea of being able to pull teams together that have been training with the same leadership coach, you have access to, you'll have experience with your group of 5 teams of 2. The coach brings another team they train, now you can do a 20% project, and it could be something even voluntarily. You might say, we really care about, I don't know, this social cause, and we need 20 people to go and be kick-ass elite members. We're gonna pull our team of 10, work with this other team, we'll do a fundraiser together, right? Or it might be like a speaking event that's held by one of them, maybe Brent's doing it in WPI, he'll pull, right? You can see how this notion, and this to me is the new kind of network world. You have nodes of small teams, and despite your, not slave job or whatever, the payment job is to the company. Like, the company wants you to win, right? And winning oftentimes requires you to pull knowledge and partnership with people outside of your company. And training is the key to it. So I think that's
Yeah,
what we
like what
have.
Michael in our chat had said, let us create and innovate, you know, don't want to use my brain for these repetitive tests, but you know, that, like what you just said, is it takes training. You know, you need small teams, so
Yeah.
finding who and training to figure out who that is, and then training this extra, and just, this is such a, you know, the word innovate and be creative can sound so loaded, like how do I do that, right? And we're trying to break down the steps of how you do that, right, which starts with who you're doing it with, and then getting into this training.
Oh, sorry, can I take it? Sorry, I put this in the parking lot. I love this.
Oh, yeah, I'd like it to.
You know,
Def Jam Records.
yeah, Rick Rubin is the founder of Def Jam, you know, can you learn to be creative? It's the answer is basically yes. But the question you should be asking is, can you learn to be yourself? And as in this kind of very quickly labeled, you know, judgmental world, judgmental in the word choice, that, I mean,
Right.
like, there's so many words that I still get in trouble for because it's not politically correct anymore, right? The choice of one word can get you to be a Neanderthal, uneducated, right? Or not caring of certain things. Point being.
That's why this is so much harder, right?
It's harder to be ourselves.
Yeah.
Because based on when you were raised, right? I mean, in school, you can't use the word stupid. I'm like, I can't believe that's the word that's offensive. I was like, there's so many more offensive words. Like, but that one is top of the list. And I wasn't raised that way, so if I'm being myself, it just comes out of my mouth sometimes. But you can't say that, right? And so then you're not fully being myself, and I'm not saying that I can't adjust, it's just the notion of being yourself is harder today than ever before, right? With footprints of everything everywhere, digital, from photos and videos and words.
If you can't be yourself, you're saying that you can't be creative, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
I put it in small slide, questions, thoughts,
and even from in the room
Yeah.
here. Let's see, just looking at the chat, if anybody on the Zoom call here, if you have a
I
question.
can dive into any one slide if you want to go back to it, so I just put it like this. Yeah, so who,
I know, Monica, you had something in here, I don't know if there's a question in there.
hopefully Caesar doesn't think we're so nuts, but, or maybe now he's doing the behind the scenes nuts. He's like, these guys are nut jobs.
No, there's a lot in here, right?
Anyone want to mute or?
We loved it.
We'll try to digest the chat a little bit faster, but,
Anybody in here with us? I think, yeah,
sorry, is there something in the chat? Sorry,
No.
Sorry, I haven't even read it, so I don't know.
I can unmute. Monica, go ahead, Monica. Or you're saying you can't unmute?
I have a very philosophical, I don't know if it's question or not, because I think companies and systems and even like countries have trained a lot of their people to not think, like just follow instructions and like more on, you have like one of the slides there, I think it's slide 9, more on the old world, like how, yeah, it's slide 9, yeah, that one, like more of the old skills. And my point in one of my interactions, they're like, how are we gonna move all these people into the new skills when like really thinking it's a soft skill, like, and I even put like it will take a village actually to move all these people that are just like buy the book, and it's been the story of my life, and I pride myself in developing my teams and being in like high performance teams and developing teams. And sometimes I like struggle with my teams with that, because I'm like, please think, like try thinking how.
Yes.
How do we move people from these?
How many times do you hear the use your head, right? Can you please use your head, right?
Yeah.
Which is the exact topic. So I'll give you 2 answers to that, which is fascinating. Why timing is what matters usually most in this stuff. So first is there was a part, if you read the book or listen to the podcast, this guy James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, one that's sold 10 million copies right now,
Yeah.
right? And he talks about the environment. And it's fascinating, things that you think you'd never do, the environment changes and everyone adjusts. Happens all the time, right? I remember just growing up, you go to Asia, wearing a mask when you're sick is like kind of common, right? But, and then I remember we had some employees
Yeah.
who did that. And literally, they
Before
look
COVID,
like,
yeah.
before COVID, and
Yeah.
everyone looks at them weird, because
Yeah.
it's like,
No.
how bad is your disease that you're coming to work, that you're wearing a mask?
Yes.
Versus you want to say, don't show up to work,
Right, right.
But it was like a polite thing.
It was,
right?
yeah.
And I never thought, to be honest, I'd see non-Asia, like people, non-Asian people, like wear masks the way they do. Like at the level they do everywhere. Like just, it's amazing how fast we change the environment. Like the whether it's people saying, I'll never order groceries online,
Right.
Because I like to pick my stuff.
Right.
To like, like what the virtual meetings and, like whether it's working from home or what, like there's, how many phrases can you imagine pre-COVID we said we never would, right? Versus you look at what happens now, right? And his point was, it's crazy the adaptability of human beings. Environment changes and people adjust, but we have found when you look in the research and history, it doesn't change. Change is that painful. It doesn't change until you have to. It has to break. The old way, as long as it produces, will not create change. There's a whole part, even on our tour, about the 100-year change, looking at education, look at schools right now with ChatGPT. And everyone says schools have to change. Guess what? You don't think it's gonna change? You don't think any school giving kids homework to write an essay, right? You don't think that's gonna change?
Right, of course.
Because
It has
you're
to.
gonna have students coming in, you're gonna be like, I have to give them all A's.
Yeah.
And like, it's gonna have to change. And so it won't change until it has to change. So the environment change is happening right now, and this aligns with the biology and history of 100-year change occurring, and that's one that
Environment
is
change.
exactly why, yes, your frustration before, different time right now. And you're seeing all the data points happening everywhere, including the pain points of must change. But there's a second reason, and this is fascinating. It comes from the conversation I had last Friday with the
PGA
president of the PGA. So he came in with a woman who's about to be the president of the Parent Association for our school, Avenues. And they both come from Hawaii. I was born in Hawaii and stuff, so maybe that's what they're trying to rope me into this. And they came and said totally separately, can you help us save Hawaii? Now that's like, what, right? They're
I
like,
didn't know it needed saving,
Like-
to be totally honest.
Hawaii in the 80s was a different Hawaii. The way they phrased it was the aloha. There's a magic in Hawaii that's gone. And if you ever went to Hawaii in the 80s, it was just awesome. You go now, it's like, and the way they put it, it's tourists and military.
Yeah.
And it feels like all the talent left, they say, to the mainland. Like, so all the people there, like the way he phrased it was, most people who live in Hawaii, 23 hours of happy hour and 1 hour of pain. And that 1 hour is when they commute to work, right? Like, it's just like, how do you
Just hang out
save this
time,
place?
just the
It's like
hangovers or
eroding.
whatever, yeah.
Like, I remember
Yeah.
the days when we went to Detroit, right?
Yeah, oh God, that was
Like,
depressing.
oh my God,
Yeah,
was
the
it depressing.
downtown and the
Like,
auto
it
industry,
literally,
yeah.
like-
Felt desolate or, was it the word? I'm
Yeah,
looking for?
like, you go to any city, it's like kind of like, it literally feels like tumbleweeds, right? And you're in a 5-star resort and stuff, you won't see it, but you go local, it's just not the same, saying, how do we save Hawaii? Especially when the talent's gone. So here's the discussion I had with him. You're looking at the wrong way. All the talent that went to the mainland is the best at reactive decision-making. They are the smartest, and by the way, because they're smart and they learned and succeeded and got promoted based on that skill, it's gonna be harder for them to unlearn. Said another way, and this is something we've seen over time, where when we recruit from MIT for engineers, or we recruit from a 2-year community college, the difference was MIT students had near zero humility. 2-year college had a lot of humility. They didn't have a lot of competence. So meaning there's a lot to improve and learn. Versus the MIT students started with, well, I know I'm 21, but let me start by telling you how to run your company better, right? And once you listen to me, I'll listen to you. And I was like, and it's interesting, Ray Dalio had a quote too, like this common standstill, like student has to listen to the teacher and the teacher has to listen, what's the right sequence? And said, like generally, the success starts with get the teacher first. Students listen to the teacher, and once that's accomplished, teacher focuses on how to engage and listen to the students.
But putting that
The other way
aside-
around doesn't work.
Okay,
So
but to the
point
point you're
being,
making on Hawaii, all the best talent left, but they're the best reactive decision makers. They're the best of the best when it comes
the
to the
Hawaii
skill of the
talent doesn't
20.
have an unlearning hurdle.
Right, they don't have an unlimited,
Right?
yeah.
So, given this new skill, our discussion was, I think we can help you train a stronger, small elite force in proactive decision-making skills on the talent that's been left. They've been left, they've been abandoned, they're the ones who can't get into Harvard and Stanford or whatever school you want to say is the best.
Well, it feels like
Right?
that with young kids right now in school, before they get screwed
So-
up by
no,
the
but-
education system,
but-
they're
but-
still creating and innovating when they're in kindergarten, and then they go through the school
No,
system.
but it's a
and
different point.
Gets beat out
It's a
of them.
different point. Talent gets left, right? Everyone wants to recruit the talent that's brightest,
Yeah.
right? Brightest defined looking backwards.
Right.
Meaning
Yeah.
12,000 people or 10,000 got laid off from Google, right? Looking backwards, they're considered, they got some of the hardest jobs to get, right? But they might have the wrong skills. And there's a lot of talk of they might not have the skills to now go, it was too cushy, it was too this, it was too that. Like, they were used to just working 4 years on one tiny feature when a company needs them to own the whole thing. Like, the past definition, the past is how they're defining it. And so the point was this, so the second point, the punchline besides the environment is winning. Winning always wins out. The market forces, right? Winning wins. Meaning, like, you take a small, what seems like a ragtag team of people in Hawaii, put them in groups of 2, and you train them, and they start innovating, and they start winning. They will start to feel momentum. With that momentum, they'll want to learn more, right? And they don't have the immune issue the same way that I always did this way, the reactive, that part has to unlearn that. The very thing that made them this successful, they have to unlearn because it's like a different skill. Like I said, even the brain part, it starts at a different point. It starts at an origination where you have to argue about even the problem with someone. And they're like, no, you know why I succeeded? I was good at de-escalating arguments. I was good at avoiding conflict, which is why I succeeded. I was good at actually, you see all these things that they actually believe was a core to their identity of success,
Right.
they have to unlearn. That's called immune system. And
You're saying in Hawaii, they don't have that.
I'm saying the talent who
yeah.
didn't succeed with that won't have that.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty interesting discussion. So I look at those 2 things as factors.
I know, Michael, you have a question? Is it Michael? Let's see.
Right.
Okay.
I just want to add, so they're saying the best of Hawaii, and it's like the embodiment of Hawaii is like kind of like a magical place. So why is it so concerning for there to be business leaders and leadership for, I guess, for corporations or whatnot, but then they go against like the tourism, and tourism is like you got the urban sprawl, you got more kind of concrete jungles going on. So isn't it trying to really kind of capture the beauty and hold on to the beauty of Hawaii and not like have like these specialized teams and whatnot?
I think with the beauty of Hawaii, as an outsider, we think about beaches, we think about, the marine stuff and whatnot. When you're a local who's there all the time, the beauty is beyond that. That's their natural like kind of background or backdrop, right? What's happening on a regular basis?
Yeah.
The people you're interacting with, what are you doing just on a regular, it's like what they call the
That's
locals, right?
They're saying it's
It's a
not beautiful
different view,
anymore. They're saying
right?
that it's not what it was. So from
Like-
their
like-
point of view, the people who were there,
Like not beautiful, but magical.
no, not
is the
beautiful.
word,
Well,
right?
they said
It's
that
the word.
aloha is not there anymore, meaning it's not Hawaii. It's not the Hawaii
So it's
that,
how they interacted with each other, how they respect each other, how they kind of go forward and like just love each
Well,
other.
so- But, so it's interesting, Michael, what you're trying to do. It's fascinating. The 2 of them were saying, we know there's a problem, we don't even know how to define the problem. And so this starts with, and we're trying to help them define the problem.
right.
But part of it also, from their side, was we don't have the talent, so should we even bother? And so our argument was, yes, because you actually have an advantage not having to unlearn. And the president of the golf PGA in Hawaii is like the mayor of Hawaii. His connections with every hotel and everything is massive. And so,
That's like a conflict of interest almost, it feels like. You got a
If it's
person
what?
that has like money to bring in, like if you're a PGA owner and you have like these golf courses and you're gonna want this kind of tour, he can use that power and I mean, I mean, for the education system, like how we're talking earlier, raising kids in that place to be a certain way. And then maybe use connections outside, so when people do visit, they can maybe get accustomed to certain kind of customs.
So you know what's the dirty secret in the most successful people everywhere? Conflict of interest is just part of how they do business. They'll never call it that, right? You hear a guy like Naval, who's well-written and he says, I just do business with 10 people, right? Like, and everything they're working on, it's like, this is the whole, Ray Dalio is the pick your who's carefully. You call it conflict of interest, like, you don't, like, you gotta use your assets. His assets in his case is the connection at the golf, but he has a genuine desire. I mean, once again, maybe he's fooling us, but I believe he wants Hawaii fixed and better. He lives there, it's his interest. This other woman is the president of the President Parent Association, same interest. And so, this notion though of, rather than sit down and let's define the problem, let's define the solution, we were setting them up on a path of how to help them start to solve for the problem before we even start to solve for. But oftentimes, a lot of people, we say, sometimes the hard part people don't want to start is saying, but it's a losing game. And the losing game for them was the talent is missing. We said, you have it wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and so that was giving them more will or thirst or hunger to go initiate.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well said, well said. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody in the room or in Boston, let's see, or in London in the office? I see there's a bunch of people in there. If you guys have questions, go ahead and unmute or put it in the chat. Anyone in here? Otherwise, I don't know what we should do. Oh, next week we have our thirsty, well, whatever, it's not thirsty, it's tasty. Whatever it is, true or delicious or whatever it's gonna be.
We're gonna
It's a
drink,
bunch of different
although we will be drinking bone broth soon. Yes,
We'll be
so-
drinking, so maybe it is gonna be thirsty.
It's like a thirsty, that kind of fills you up. Any thoughts from the room? Any of the stuff, any of the slides I can go to? Any? From a startup mentoring point of view, anything interesting?
You said mentoring?
Oh, mentoring.
Oh.
Anush we have here, she's one of the directors of the Founders Institute in New York, so just.
I mean, I agree with you in terms of the workplace changing and us needing to change with it. To me, that's the path to entrepreneurship is one of the ways.
Yeah. Yes.
That's who we need to rely on to build the future, so.
It's fascinating. I've met this guy who literally built a consulting business helping big companies create entrepreneurship inside the company, saying that's how you solve everything. And so, I mean, he's working with the Fortune 500 doing exactly this because entrepreneurs, I mean, this message of they don't start where there's no boss. It's up to them and it's do or die on them.
That's not Jeremy Kagan, is it?
It could be. I met him.
The corporate accelerator you wrote?
I think that might be it. But yeah, so it's interesting because working with startups and especially new startups, I'm sure you get a unique view. This is like kind of our everyday, you know? Like this is, it's not like, wow, this is so insightful. It's like, no, this is kind of like every day for startups. Like startup founders, by definition, have to create from nothing. And like they're going through a process of iterating. And I know they do 1 minute elevator pitches to move to whatever, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, like just, it's like they're literally learning to create all the factors, team and mission, simultaneously in a highly iterative fashion. And you have a rhythm of every week, right? While learning curriculum, actually creating a company, right?
It's one of the reasons, I mean, Charlie loves coaching entrepreneurs, right? Because like the mission is so important to them, it's their baby. It's like you gotta figure it out, it's do or die, which is why, you know, even when you get critical feedback, they're like, thank you for the best entrepreneurs, right? Like, thank you, I didn't see that. They almost have sort of gratitude for being told these really critical things because I didn't know that. It's a blind spot, I need it. So it's something that Charlie's really passionate about just because I haven't been in the situation himself.
And going back to what you said, you're absolutely right. One of the assignments,
Say it out loud maybe for everybody.
one of the first assignments is actually how learning to take feedback
Yes.
Right.
and learning to argue. And part of that is being able to listen
To
to the
listen,
feedback and be curious.
It's interesting, it's one of the keys that we develop an app on this, because one of the keys founded is your first teachers, and this is the sequence of how they taught people on feedback. You first need to learn to take feedback without responding. Because the thing we do is we instantly try to argue back.
It's like
That I'm
forcing you in
right,
many ways to listen,
right?
to try to
And so,
bite your
so you
tongue,
see
to
the
just
entrepreneurs,
listen.
I know founders
Yeah.
where like, you see them get feedback from mentors and they
Yeah.
wanna argue back. And the best mentors of the directors literally shut them up and
Yeah.
say, you can't respond.
Yeah,
And they're, and it's learning to take the feedback, then you get to a place of learning to get that interaction. But it's almost like, it literally is very much like learning to teach people, from Cobra Kai, like karate or something. You first need to put in the dues
Yeah.
of sanding the floor and waxing the cars to get the basics before, because he's like, teach me to fight. And is the building blocks first, and before you build up, right?
just so it's clear, Heidi, and for the rest of the leadership and practice team here, we are gonna be teaching every week, every Thursday. We're not
And
gonna
you can
have
plug in, yeah.
leadership and practice, but we're gonna, the format itself, we're gonna try to spend more time on this notion of TTT, meaning train the trainers, getting more in-depth on training the different modules that we have, just so we're using this time and getting questions and just getting more into the details of coaching and the challenges and the opportunities that there are with coaching.
If it isn't clear.
But we're still
there-
gonna we're still gonna teach.
Like, just in the last week alone, the level of requests for help from large enterprises is growing at an exponential rate. And so, which is why the adjustments we're making is to make a greater investment in just developing the best leadership coaches on the planet. And so all of it is kind of finding ways to bend the existing plumbing to help that. So.
No, it's not taking longer to process, Heidi. It's still, it's new, so it's new. All right,
We good?
yeah. We'll see you guys next week. We'll see you from the kitchen.
Oh, yeah, we'll see you
Live
from the kitchen.
broadcasting from the kitchen.
And if you want to come and
Before.
actually not only learn how to make it, but taste it,
Yeah.
shoot us a note. I don't know what
Yeah.
Boston London will do, but maybe you could find a theme on bone broth. I'm sure maybe we could do bone broth as a theme, right? Danny's bone broth, my God, it's
Oh,
good.
God, it's
I mean,
so
just
good.
like the stuff in it,
Ugh.
like it's like
So
just
homey.
some of the stuff. I didn't
Yeah.
know celery root tasted. I thought it was a potato, and I was like, I'm eating carbs, and then I was like, celery root. I mean, I just.
Oh, that wasn't potato?
No,
God,
see?
it was so good.
Jesus, right? Like, you would have eaten that much more.
Oh, God, it was
Yeah.
so good.
Like, I had 5 bowls and I kind of.
I don't like seeing what's at the bottom. I just like some of it I saw, and I was like, I don't really need to see the bones with them. I just, but it's delicious. Just don't look
I'm gonna
sometimes.
add
Sometimes just
some
don't
chicken
look.
feet inside.
Chicken feet, great, thanks. I'll pretend you didn't say that. Well, thank you for all the new people who joined us. I hope you enjoyed it. To all of our regulars, it was good to see you all. And we'll see you from the kitchen next week. And then for some of you, maybe we'll see you in London in a few weeks.
Yeah, we're gonna run, when we're there, we'll
Yeah.
run Lip out of London, so
Oh, yeah,
that'll be cool too,
it's gonna be fun.
right?
All right, we'll see you guys next.